Hello again. In this video, we will try and dry run this particular program, which is about functions, and try to mimic or visualize the dynamic nature of this particular program. We shall try to understand the properties of functions by looking at each line of code. So this is the same code that we analyzed earlier, whereby you have the main function here, which is the main part of the program, and then you have another function here called f1. So this is one single code, but then it is divided into the main function of type int and another function which is called f1 of type int. Now, these are the headers of the function, name of the function, name of the function. And this is the body of the main function, while this is the body of the smaller function, which is called f1. But now the relationship between these two functions starts from here, whereby f1 is mentioned in the body of the main function. So here is where f1 is being called. So what happens? At this particular line, a variable called y is declared. Another variable of integer type called answer is declared. So two variables are declared. At this particular line, the variable y is receiving data in the main function. But what happens here now is that the function f1 is being called. So the program will interrupt at this particular line and come here on top to start executing this line, whereby the value that is coming from y will be inputted into variable x, which is being declared in this particular function, and then the value which is in x will be multiplied by the value which is in x, and the square will be the result that is returning to this particular line again, and that answer will be fed into the variable answer. Now, let us just say I want this variable to be a bit shorter, so I call it a and c, and this one I call it a and s. And in this regard, now I can compile this program and see how it works. Now there is no error. Now if I run it, I enter an integer. Let me enter 100. That is my value. But now I'm getting 10,000 as my result after squaring the 100. So now what happened? Let us see what really happened when this program was executed. If we bring our blackboard here, we are going to see that the program starts by on the main part of the program. It means it goes to these libraries, but then when it comes here, because this is not the main function, it jumps in this line. Variables are declared. Int y, int ans. So what happens here is that the computer, before variable declaration, the memory is as follows. 2, 3, 4, 5. This is empty. The empty RAM. Empty RAM. The empty RAM. There is nothing. Now, after declaration, that is int y, int ans, the status of RAM will look as follows. Here we are. It was empty. Now we have a variable called y, then we have a variable called a and s, and the rest will remain empty. Empty. This is reserved. This is reserved. Then when it comes to this particular line, we see a message on the screen, but here C in y, then variable y is going to receive a certain value from the keyboard. So what happens? The memory will migrate, will change, and look as follows. Here we have y, here we have a and s. This is still reserved. This is still reserved. But then if we enter 10, then 10 will be in variable y. That is as far as this line here, this line is concerned. Now we have ans f1 y. Mind you, in y there is 10. In y there is 10. But then the memory now will change because the interruption will happen here, whereby f1 will be called into action. So the interruption will happen where the control will jump here and a certain variable is now being declared. So the RAM will change to the following status. We have y, which was declared in the main. We have ans, which was declared in the main. Then we are going to have another variable x, but in y there is 10. This is still reserved, and because here this particular function is called with y, the value that is in y will come and enter into variable x. So variable x is going to acquire the value of 10, which is coming from y, and this is going to be the status of this particular program as far as this line is concerned. Now coming to this line, return x times x. Actually in x there is 10, so x times x will be 100, and this 100 now will go into variable a and s. So the situation will be as follows. In y there is 10, and now a and s will receive 100, but because the control has come back in the main function, the variable answer is going to receive the square of 10, but x is going to disappear because once the function is exited, this function has been exited, these particular parameters, these variables are called parameters, they cease to exist. This is what is called formal parameter, and this is what we call actual parameter. Actual parameter stays, but formal parameter disappears when the function ceases to be in function, so in place. So this is empty and actually empty. Actually the variable x ceases to exist and we remain with this situation. So on C out A and C, we now see 100 on the screen, which is coming from this particular variable. That is as far as functions are concerned. You can see now the important part is to know that this is the head of the function. Although this particular line is on top of this particular line, the computer will always start with the main function until when it encounters this particular name, it will interrupt and come back here to start execution of this line. So line number 4 does not execute until line number 13 has executed. Yet, when you want to trace the values that are involved in this particular program using these particular RAM diagrams, it's quite so easy to realize what happens in the computer. So far, this is as far as functions are concerned and parameters are concerned. We shall learn more about them in the following videos. But for now, thank you and bye-bye.